Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all to this online conference on thermophilic fish by Cristina Caparrós. At Fundesplai, we have been working for a long time now to raise awareness among people to act and face social, environmental and climate challenges ahead of us. We do so by organizing several activities and initiatives, such as an exhibition called Menja, Actua, Impacta, Eat, Act, Impact, which you can visit in El Prat de Llobregat, but also some educational activities in schools and non-formal education centers, and conference cycles on topics like the one we will tackle today. Before giving the floor to Cristina, we will show you a video about this exhibition to encourage you to visit it. The conference today is a part of the Eat Life project, which is also a part of the LIFE project of the European Union. This project aims at contributing to attaining the goals set at the European Green Deal, in particular those from the farm to the fork strategy. Those goals are to reduce the carbon footprint of food, to reduce food loss and waste, to ensure food security and food availability for everybody, and to ensure a fairer, healthier and more sustainable food system. With regards to this project, it is important that you evaluate this activity afterwards. We would like to remind you that you can ask questions during the conference, and Cristina will answer them at the end of the conference. At Fundesplai, we are delighted to welcome Cristina Caparrós. She has a PhD in chemistry, and she is the ship owner of a boat called Ostia, and she's the manager of a project called La Playeta that sells local and fresh food and seafood. She is also the daughter and granddaughter of fishermen and fisherwomen in the Barceloneta neighborhood in Barcelona, and she's the president of the Tourism and Sea Experience Association, Capamar. This is why we believe that Cristina shares our vision that human health, the health of humankind, and planet health, the health of our planet are intertwined, and the two factors that connect them are sustainability and environmental care. Welcome, Cristina. The floor is all yours. Thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this conference. I would like to tell you a little bit more about myself. You introduced me really well, and I think it is very important to explain who we are and where we come from, so that people listening to us can know what I explain and where I come from with my explanations. So this is what I would like to do, to tell you where I come from and tell you what a ship owner really is, because not everyone will know it. A ship owner, normally in bigger industries, in world big industries, you may hear that in the news. It is typically the owner of that big vessel to make sure that things work. But in small boats, in a port or a harbor like the one in Barcelona, basically, the ship owner is the person in charge of making sure everything is all right for fishing. For example, having drinking water on board, having food, but also insurance, permits, protection equipment, all these type of things. And this is a task that traditionally was performed by women because they were the ones that would stay in land. But normally it was a very invisible role. This is why I always like to explain that I am a ship owner, to be able to explain what this role is. And it's just to make sure that all these women are visible and to encourage also women who would like to become ship owners. I am here today to tell you my view on where we are in the world of fishing and how we can contribute to be, responsible consumers. Thank you. Thank you, Cristina. For us, it is really interesting to hear what you do. And whenever, the floor is all yours and you can start. Okay. As you know, I come from a neighborhood called Barceloneta. My family has a long tradition of fishing, many generations, and we still have fishermen and fisherwomen in Barcelona. We have 23 fishing boats that go fishing every single day and go back, and they sell fish in the fish market in Barcelona, and they give us perfect, good quality product, which is local, fresh, seasonal fish. I am going to explain what I do briefly, and then I will identify the main challenges that we need to face when we talk about fish, and when we want to also discuss climate change and all the challenges we have in the fishing community. Just 1 minute. As I was saying, we are local fishermen and fisherwomen. We fish in Barceloneta, nearby. And I would like to show you, rather than speaking for a long time, I would like to play a short video that will help me explain who we are and what we do on a daily basis. This is what we do every day. Every morning, this is Paco. Normally, Paco and Joan go fishing every morning. They leave at 6 a.m. And what they do is they go to the fishing grounds of Garraf, where they do a very traditional manual work, which is far away from industrial fishing, industrialization that normally you may have seen in many documentary films. This is a carefully selected, manually selected fish in fishing grounds that are authorized, with fish biodiversity, with protected seafloor. And then this fish gets to Barceloneta, in this neighborhood that you all go to visit, to walk, to have a paella. And it is very exciting, I think, when I look at this, because I always think that everyone should be lucky enough to see how fresh red shrimp are. Their color, or an anchovy, for example, a freshly caught anchovy, see it so close away, so close from us, and this being caught by people like us and prepared by people like us, not big companies, not big industries, but people who select everything carefully so that we can consume these products. This is something that we do every day and that we do very close in Barceloneta neighborhood. As we are a primary business, a primary sector, and there are not many of us, it is good that we can show, that we can display our small paradise, our small corner of the world that we still have. So, as I told you, we still have 2 fishing boats with this adventure of marketing and selling fish. And to do that, in a workroom, to make everything very, very easy for consumers, to give them clean fish so that it is easy to consume and it is very local. We thought that it was very important to do that because people are consuming less and less fish, and they do that. Maybe they don't buy local fish, not because they don't want to, but because of lack of knowledge of the place we live in. So we thought it was very important to accompany this process. We have been doing this for more than 20 years. We are transforming ourselves and creating sustainable initiatives to fish less, to fish better, and to explain what we do. This is why it is so important to complement that offer, not just taking fish to consumers. This can be done through fishmongers or markets, but the most important thing is to explain what we do as much as possible, because many consumers don't know what our grandmothers used to know. When, for example, a neighbor was a fisherman and he came with a lot of sardines, you knew that that day many sardines were caught, and he would explain you how to preserve them, how to have pickled sardines, for example, to preserve them for a long time, and to use this product, a seasonal product, and how to manage that. This is why I would like to explain what we do. We try to cover the whole ecosystem of fish to be able to provide information about the good practices in the world of fishing, and to be able to say, like, you can come, for example, to the fish market. You can try and be a part of one of these projects, gastronomical projects, to learn and to know some species. And I'm just not going to explore that in depth now, because I will talk about it later. I mean, there are cooking courses, for example, or you can also have tasting or dinners at the sea museum. But I will tell you more now. Now I will start my presentation in more detail. You already know who I am and where I come from. And now I would like to explain a little bit more. So, right now, I don't really like to talk about climate emergency, because in the world of fishing, we already know, we have assumed, we know that there are always bad news. For a long time, many people have been talking in a bad way about fishing, and there has been many progress as well, many new processes, ways of recovering the, sea floors, to work in a more sustainable way, in a more selective way. But it is true that right now things are happening in our sea. But I want to look at the bright side, at the silver lining. Today we want to talk about, resilience, but we want to talk about challenges and the things that climate change encompasses, but what are the positive things that are happening as well. For example, as you all know, there's a rise in sea temperatures. The ocean temperatures are increasing, we know that, and that makes some species that were not present in our sea so much, or that would spend less time with us. Now, these species are more present and we can consume them more. It's not that we're happy about the rising ocean temperatures, but the situation is this, and we can understand it, and we can find these seasonal species in a different way now. So, there is something that we need to know, and many people talk about pollution in the sea. Pollution in the sea starts on the land. We need to be very aware that everything ends up in the sea. So, fishermen and fisherwomen, in the last few years, what we do is we collect waste in the sea, we take it to the land, and we recycle it. And we also study to make sure that this waste does not damage our fish. So, on our littoral coast, we have good news. We think things are being done properly, and we are making progress in several projects that allow us to clean the seabed without compromising on our fish health and the species we are fishing. So there is something else, and I'm going to cover it briefly because, of course, fishing policies are difficult, but there's something called closed season or fishing closures. For a long time on the Catalan coast, local fishermen, what we do, well, there are some closed seasons, seasons in which we cannot go fishing for a month, 2 months, 3 months to make sure that there is a regeneration of the sea, that species can reproduce, and this is done in collaboration with biologists to know, the areas where fishing has to stop so as not to damage the reproduction cycle of species in a way that is good for the environment in the future. This is absolutely key. As I told you, and as you saw in the video, we have small boats with 4, 5 people, tops, always the same families. And what we want is we want to continue fishing for a long time. That makes a big difference with other type of fishing, like deep sea fishing or distant water fishing. What we want as fishermen and fisherwomen is to be able to continue doing what we do for a long time. This is why we are so committed with the environment. We have closed seasons or fishing closures because we think it's good for the environment, but also because we have to perform a task of recovery of the sea species and try and learn from biologists to have sustainable and selective fishing. But what happens then? What we are not taking into account when we have these closed seasons, which are becoming longer and longer this year it will be 3 months, what we don't take into account is that sometimes there is an increase of other species. Species that may be small predators, for example. Normally, when there is fishing, they don't have so much freedom, so they don't grow so much. But then when we come back fishing, they have become bigger. And this is again an opportunity to see how we can improve and manage this situation. So, some people may ask themselves whether the solution is to stop eating fish. Somebody asked it to me once, and I said, of course not. The solution is not to stop eating fish. What we need to know is when to eat it, how to eat it, and how to do it well. But what is important? It is important to eat fish that has been caught sustainably, in a sustainable way. We know that there are other fishing models which are not local fishing, which are not the proximity, the local fishing that we do here. So we need to go to our fishmongers, try to check the labels and make sure that the fish we eat comes from the Catalan fish market, because in Catalan fish markets there are inspections, there are warranties, and we know that fish will be seasonal, local, that all boats comply with the requirements in terms of training, in terms of any type of requirement set by the authorities. All the boats working in the Catalan harbors are complying with those regulations. And also, at the same time, we know that this is a system, and people working in this system are people like us, people who go to the market. This is a small-scale coastal fishing. They go to the market, they do the same things that we do, they buy other products, so in that way, fishing can become more sustainable, can be done in a better way, and we can ensure that all improves in terms of new requirements. But what happens? Normally you go to the fishmongers and it turns out that all fish is the same. We have hake, we have anglerfish, nothing else. And we will see what we can do about that. It is important to know that we are consuming controlled products, but also it is also important to know what are the seasonal products. You know that like with fruit and vegetable, it is important to always eat seasonal products. They're nicer, they're healthier, and we reduce the CO2 footprint, and we can improve processes in this short circuit. So here comes my proposal to become more specific after this long introduction. I'm going to introduce today or present today two projects, and I will give you some context about these two projects. The first project I would like to discuss, you have the link on screen, and we will also send it to you. But the first project comes from the Oceanic program by the University of Girona, with a wonderful recipe book promoted by the City Council of Rosas. I will tell you more about that in a minute. But it has to do with thermophilic species. What are thermophilic species? Thermophilic species are those that, due to the increasing sea temperatures, they had always been here in the Mediterranean Sea. We had always fished them, but in a smaller proportion, because they would be in our sea for a shorter period of time in the past, not long enough for us to find them in our fish markets. So they would end up in fishermen's houses, but not in the markets. So, thermophilic species, this is a wonderful project. We have been studying these thermophiles with different scientists and also with the collaboration of cooks, some cooks to make them even nicer and to teach us how to cook them. So, thermophilic species give us the possibility of having fish that may not have so much value in the eyes of consumers, so the price is lower. But most of the times, they are a nice, very good alternative to other species that have a bigger impact and a bigger commercial, impact. So, for example, let me show you. This is the recipe book. It is absolutely beautiful, stunningly beautiful. You can download it. We are going to give you the link if you want. You can download the PDF. This is the scientific team in charge of this project. Agatha Albero, she coordinated this wonderful project, the gastronomical part of it, but also the contents, with wonderful, spectacular texts by Marta and illustrations by Marta that are amazing. And then, if we now start talking about these thermophiles or thermophilic species, we have several species here that you may not know. If you ever heard about them, I don't know. For example, here we have bucket mackerel, dolphin fish, trevally, derbio, bluefish, and round sardinella. Dolphin fish, for example, is not very well known on the Catalan coast because normally, in the past, when the sea temperature was lower, that type of fish wouldn't spend much time in the Mediterranean Sea. However, in the Balearic Island, dolphin fish was very well known. There are many recipes there, and you can eat dolphin fish in the Balearic Islands quite often. So sometimes a fish that is not common in an area is very common in another area. I gave you these examples, but there are many more. For example, bucket mackerel. It is a very delicious food. Or we have, for example, round sardinella, which is a type of sardine in a way. You may have eaten it already. Some tin products, they say they're made with sardines, but as a matter of fact, they are made with round sardinella. And it is super nice. All these products, all these fish, they're so nice. You can make the most of them. You can cook beautiful dishes, beautiful recipes with, bucket mackerel, dolphin fish, trevally derby or bluefish, brown sardinella. So we also have, greater amberjack, great barracuda, albacore, pompano, little tiny, chub mackerel. Chub mackerel is a type of mackerel, and I'm sure you have all eaten them because sometimes they're mixed with mackerel, so it's very usual to have this type of species. And here we have two more, the white-eyed flounder and the blue crab. The blue crab is the only species in this project that is an invasive species, but it has been introduced for a long time now, and it is being marketed so much that it has also been introduced in our recipes. Okay? Here you have the dolphin fish with this spectacular color, which is so nice with these beautiful yellow-blue colors when fished, but then with this shiny color. Look at the head. It's a little bit bulky when they grow, but it's so nice, so delicious. Beautiful dishes can be cooked with it. I'm going to show you the link of the recipe book. We will also send it to you through the chat. But I definitely encourage you to have a look at this recipe book. It's in PDF, you can download it. It's called La cuina del mar que arriba, el canvi climàtic al nostre plat, that is to say, our incoming cuisine, climate change on our plate, and it is about thermophilic species. So, second project has to do with forgotten fish. Forgotten fish, it's ambiguous what they are. Some people don't accept the definition, others do. After conducting some surveys and asking about different views from people, forgotten fish, well, that depends on the perspective of each person. Those are species that are either not well known or completely unknown, that people don't know so much, or that maybe they were consumed 50 years ago in other generations, but we don't consume them anymore. What happens is that they're not at the fishmongers, so they're not in our shops. In the world of fishing, they are not fished anymore, or when they fish, they don't have much value. It's difficult to find them. I am very happy because in the last few years, when I visit, the market, I like to go to the market and look around, but it was very, very difficult to find some of these fish, like greater forkbeard, or black-mouthed sharks, or flying squid, and it's becoming increasingly usual to find them. There are always one or two shops that have these fish, and this is a great indicator of fishmongers working so well, prescribing things to us, helping us to learn, to know what is the seasonal fish. It is really nice to see that they have these species. I will tell you more about those species in a minute. But it's key. It's key to identify what type of shop we are visiting, whether it is a place with respectful consumption or an industrial consumption. So, normally those species, though, tend to be unknown. They are often unknown or not very famous because they are uglier, so to speak. They have more bones, they're difficult to clean, difficult to prepare the fillets, or, the fish tail is a little bit, less round, and that makes them more complicated to prepare. Or sometimes we just haven't seen them around, so we don't know them. For example, we have the flying squid and also the deep water pink shrimp. The flying squid is, of course, a type of squid, a little bit different, but it can be very nice, and it's cheaper than squid. When it's difficult sometimes to cook it on the grill, you need more experience for that. But for some other recipes like cassolettes, for example, or, recipes like noodles. To cook this type of fish, it's super nice and it's tasty and much cheaper. Sometimes we don't know that there may be a lot of flying squid, and I don't know if squid is 20 plus euros or 30 plus euros. Flying squid can be 10 to 15 euros, and sometimes of the year it can even be 8, 9 euros a kilogram. So it's a very, very good alternative for a cassolette, for a nice recipe, for, noodles, as we said before. It's affordable. Deep water pink shrimp or roast shrimp is also a good alternative with half the price than red shrimp. Right now, for example, deep water pink shrimp is 15 to 20 euros, whereas red shrimp is 40 euros or even more. So for a paella or for rice, we can use deep water pink shrimp without coming always back to red shrimp. On the other hand, we have, for example, Purcot or Capellan. We organize several cycles, several conferences based on these type of species, and we still organize them because we believe that they are useful, that at the end, people who come and taste this fish or cook this fish, they end up seeing how nice this food is, that they can use it as well, that it's worthwhile to order this fish. And we like to say that this is the 5th, for example, diners that we organize at the Sea Museum. At the beginning, when we started with fork beard, with greater fork beard, nobody knew it, but now that we have been talking about greater fork beard so much, and that people know that it's a sustainable alternative to hake. Hake has a strong commercial demand, and many fishermen need to go fishing hake because everybody wants hake. But then we get hake from other places of the planet to compete with our local hake, and this type of hake entails social and economic and environmental impacts because it is fished in other places of the world in non-sustainable ways. So we have to fight against this type of cake that is everywhere. So great fork beard is a very sustainable alternative to hake because it's white fish that is very mellow, very tasty. It has a delicate taste, and it can be cooked in ways that are very similar to hake without even noticing the difference. I clearly prefer great fork beard to hake, in my case, for example. Then we have black-mouth cat shark. Both the one I mentioned before, fork beard, and black-mouth cat shark are typically fished when the boats are trying to catch shrimp. Sometimes it's not only a matter of fishing in a better way, which is clearly important. We're using sensors, we're using all these type of things to make our processes better, along with biologists, to improve productivity. But once things are fished already, it's important that we can eat and value everything we fish. And in the case of red shrimp, which is caught deep and has a lot of value, commercial value, and it's really, really tasty. Normally, restaurants like it very much, and it's consumed in specific times of the year as well. So it's normal that we have this deep fishing for red shrimp. But if they go and end up catching fork beard or black-mouth cat shark instead, it's good to have tools to cook these species as well, cook them, and make this much more sustainable, right? So, in the case of black-mouth cat shark, it's a type of little shark. When we go to Andalusia, I'm sure you've eaten, if you've been to Andalusia, you've eaten marinated dogfish. We do not have dogfish here, but we have blackmouth cat shark. It's smaller, but it's nice. We could cook it as well with noodles, and it's very, very delicious. Another example is purcot or kaplan, which can also be very nice. We can fry it. It's very nice, and it can allow us to replace hake as well. So, I will try to stick to the time that has been allocated to me. So, I would like to recap now on those concepts, on everything that we have been seeing so far. And then, of course, I will answer your questions. We have been talking today about local fish and sustainable consumption. What are the species that we can buy? What are the environmental advantages of consuming local fish, fresh fish, knowing that it is sustainable? For me, everything that comes from the Catalan fish market, that is a warranty. Because there are so many controls, there are so many administrations regulating the whole thing, there are so many management plans about fishing. So if fish comes from a Catalan fish market, that gives you warranties. But on top of that, if we go to the fish market and we find all the species, hake, anglerfish, but many other species as well, then we can make the most and try and find all these other species that are more seasonal, or, for example, thermophilic species. In autumn or spring, there may be moments where when we have these species, then maybe we can make the most of it. We can go to the fishmongers and say, when will you have dolphin fish? Will you have horse mackerel? And then forgotten fish, like I heard about, greater forkbeard that is really, really nice. Will you bring it to your shop? And in that way, we can encourage our fishmonger to ask for this type of fish and take it to us at a lower price than hake or all these other species that are so commercial. But on top of that, this makes the most of all the products of the sea. Obviously, it will be fresh from the day. It has to be wild as wild, without treatments. It has to be selective fishing, as selective as possible. If we can consume artisan fishing, great. Sometimes we cannot, but, it depends, of course, where we live. But obviously, fish is better when it has no additives, no manipulation, no freezing process. And to me, it's also key that we have a short distribution circuit with fewer middlemen. This is important about all type of food, for the footprint and everything. But in the case of fish is very, very perishable, and they start decomposing quickly and losing properties. So if we can consume them within 1-2 days after them being caught, it's much better than if they have an extra day. So it's key that this product comes directly to us and that we have the warranty of fishermen and fisherwomen. It's nice if we know them and we know the sacrifice that this process entails, and all the requirements that they need to face every single day, whether it's environmental requirements, but also administrative requirements. In that way, we will get this wonderful product, and this is great, and we should attach value to it. The longer the chain, the worse it is. The worse our fish will be, because we will not be able to control where it comes from. I really encourage you to check the labels at the fishmongers. You will be able to see the day, procedure, and exact species. And also, at La Placheta, we have had a challenge from the very beginning. We not just want a fair price for fishermen that entails entails, good conditions and a tradition that can be continued. But at the same time, we want to work with the minimum stock possible. There are many fishing operators that buy in bulk, and that means that there is a lot of accumulation. We should avoid that. If there's not a big stock, if things are not being kept so long, but if things are consumed only when needed, that will help rebalance the distribution chain, and we will allow waste and accumulation, because that is also bad for consumers. So I also encourage you to consider that shops that are always full of products, that is not necessarily a warranty that things are good. Because if on a Saturday midday it's full of stock of fish, at the end of Saturday, what will they do with this fish? Maybe on Monday it's going to be not so fresh anymore, and it will still be there. So please remember that excess is not necessarily good. Seeing a shop full of product is not good necessarily, okay? Because we have to avoid fish waste. So let's pay attention to the labels. Let's see if we can find these thermophilic species. Let's see if we can find them in our markets. And in that way, we can guarantee that there is also this social part of fishing in a sustainable way for a longer time, and to eat what we need, but also to avoid fish waste and to make sure that we really make the most of the products of the sea. So I have been explaining everything I wanted to explain so far. I will now answer your questions, but before finishing, my message is that we don't just sell fish. We try to go beyond that, be next to you as consumers, to answer your questions and also solve your doubts, and to work together to make fish consumption easier and more sustainable. Okay? So I will finish my conference here, but I will be absolutely delighted to answer your questions. Thank you, Cristina. Thank you for sharing with us this initiative, which is so stimulating. I mean, it really proves that with knowledge, effort, and creativity, it is possible to adapt to changes that are not always the changes we want. And in this case, on top of that, there is the collaboration of different sectors. Obviously, that makes it necessary to, have knowledge transfer and even consumer education, thereby achieving an active role. We have some questions for you. For example, there is one question which is very interesting, and it says, we know that there are fish species with less nutritional value, like catfish, Asian shark catfish. The question is whether thermophilic species have the same nutritional value than we used to eating. Well, to me, Asian shark catfish is not even acceptable. But the thing is, I like to see fish, and I like to think about it not just in terms of nutrition, but in terms of the impact it can have. With catfish, it normally comes to us frozen, already in fillets. We cannot control the additives that have been included, for example. But on top of that, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail because I'm not an expert, but there is also a lot of social impact with worse conditions for fishermen, with an unbalance at the origin, the way it's fished, the way it is managed. These species, are causing these problems. It's like what I said before about hake. hake that comes from the Senegalese coast, from Senegal, with licenses that did not take the environment into account and that are creating bad conditions for local fishermen in Senegal. That makes no sense. And the only thing is that there's, hake at 20 euros and this is 5 euros and it comes from somewhere else. But what's the real value of this fish? And with catfish, I mean, this is one of the fish types that causes this impact as well. But the question had to do with the nutritional value. Sorry to insist about this topic, but it had to be said, even if it's not nice to hear, that all these fish have the same nutritional content that we need. They are not less nutritious, less acceptable, under no circumstances, and they have never been excluded due to these properties. But sometimes when they were excluded, it's because it's difficult. I mean, when a distributor goes to buy fish, they need to have some kilograms, not just one species or two. Now it's changing. Many fishmongers are now adapting to this biodiversity. But in the past, if, for example, you had only one dolphin fish, and I don't know if customers will want it or not, I'm not going to risk it. But if now there's a lot of dolphin fish, I may ask my customers, I have seen dolphin fish, would you like to get them tomorrow? And that encourages consumers as well, and people at the stores, at the shops, to promote this consumption. But we need to take into account that fish are very different. For example, round sardinellas, it's oily fish with, omega-3 properties, fatty acids. By definition, oily fish is like that. Whereas, for example, greater forkbeards, this is white fish with less salt content, a little bit mellower. Sometimes we want to get a fish because of a different reason. It's not the same if we are giving this fish to a child who really likes different flavors, and you can give that child anchovies, but also dolphin fish or horse mackerel, and they will love it. Whereas there are other children who may want to not notice the flavors, and we can cook, for example, a delicate forkbeard, but together with vegetables. Carrot, for example, cut it with the child in different shapes. So maybe these fish that they don't like so much, or that they don't like the smell of it, we can, cook it in that way for the child to like it. It depends on what we want. But thermophilic fish, forgotten fish, we should never worry about them not having nutritional value, because they are definitely nutritious. But we need to know what we are looking for, whether we want taste, and we want something like tuna, or we want something more mellow for a cassoulet. Okay, there is somebody in the audience who asks a very practical question. She says that she doesn't know how to distinguish or know what a thermophilic species is or a forgotten fish when she goes to the fishermongers, to the shop. Well, what would be your piece of advice to her? This is a very good question. And I also think that we need to stop being afraid. I remember at home, we are fishermen and fisherwomen, so we always had a lot of fish in the fridge or in the freezer. But when I started living on my own to study, and I had to buy fish myself, which I had never done before in my life, then I realized that I knew the things I liked, but sometimes I went to the shop and I didn't know what this fish was. And then, I think the key is to lose fear. to ask. We need to stop being afraid of asking, and if we don't know, we need to ask. For example, people who sell fish to us, they have to earn our trust. If we ask them and they help us, it means that we are treated by a professional who is willing to do things well. But if we ask questions and they pull a bad face, sometimes I also recommend asking where the fish is from. We cannot know where everything comes from, but there's a label for that. And if they look at our face and say, oh, this comes from Villanova, or this has been taken from La Rápita, or this comes from the Barcelona fish market, then we will get more information and we are also helping. But if instead they look to the floor and they don't answer our question, they may not even know where the fish comes from, so they don't have this connection with producers, and that can also give us an idea. When in doubt of where to buy our fish, it is also key to, go to the place where they help us most. What we can do is we can write down a couple of names like greater forkbeard, flying squid, and chub mackerel, for example, just to give you like 3 examples, okay? And ask about these 3 species and see where we can find them. This could be a very good exercise. If there is a shop with these 3 fish, like greater forkbeard, flying squid, chub mackerel, for sure they are buying at the Catalan fish market, not through Mercabarna or supermarket chains, but it is somebody who likes this fish and who wants you to eat it and like it as well. At La Platxeta, one of our missions is to promote content like this. So if we can, we talk about greater forkbeard, flying squid, we can organize conference, we can give you videos. There's a lot of information on the website. Please check it, because it's always so enriching to know all this, and it can improve our experience of buying fish, to make it cool, to make it nice. Like today I went out and I learned something. Okay. We have many congratulations for you, many people who really liked your speech. But there is one question that I find important. They want you to explain. You recommended artisan fishing, right? What you do. But there is somebody, or traditional fishing, but there is someone who wants to know what artisan fishing or traditional fishing is. Okay. Good. Very briefly. Let me introduce very quickly the types of fishing. We have distant water fishing. Those are big vessels that go far away to other continents and they spend a long time there. Normally, what they fish, they process it on board, they freeze it, and then there are freezer vessels that take it. So then we have deep sea fishing. This is what is done in the Cantabrian seas. The fishing grounds are far away, so there's an expedition that may take some weeks to fish, but fish normally are not frozen when they come, and they come the limit, right? And then there is what we call inshore fishing, which is what we do, okay? Small-scale coastal fishing. There are 3 types of inshore fishing. One is seine fishing. This is what normally is done with oily fish. It's night fishing expeditions. They leave after dinner and they come back early morning. And this is the fishing we use for sardines, anchovies, mackerel, tuna, for example. Normally, sardines and anchovies are the most typical ones. This type of fishing is quite selective, and sometimes you don't find anything, or sometimes you find a lot of fish. Secondly, we have bottom trawling or troll fishing. Everyone in Catalonia who does bottom trawling is in this small-scale coastal fishing, right? And it has nothing to do with what we can see in the documentary films where there's a lot of fish waste and damage to the seafloor, because on the Catalan coast, we do that in a very controlled way, very carefully. Those are smaller boats. No, I mean, there are other industrial big boats that are huge, but on Catalan coast, we have small boats with 4 or 5 people tops, with no freezer. Fish is kept in boxes, just with ice cubes. This type of boats leave at 6 a.m. and then they sell the fish in the afternoon. Okay, I came from the fish market myself now. So what they fish is typically white fish, namely hake, anglerfish, blue whiting, gilthead bream, pandora, but they also fish octopus, squid, cuttlefish. And today we did not get any red shrimp because the weather was bad, but we could get deep water pink shrimp and also Norway lobster. Okay, so there are specialized boats for each. And then we have what we call artisan fishing, traditional fishing. Many of you probably in the summer have been to a fishing village, and you see these little tiny boats, 10 meters maximum, with 2-3 people tops. Those boats are very, very selective. Why are they selective? Because they go to fish very specific species. They go, for example, to fish prawns, or they go to fish. Now, for example, they are fishing cuttlefish. So depending on where they go, they use different type of devices, nets and devices. And depending on that, they fish one species or another. Obviously, it's the type of fishing that is less industrialized, more respectful. I would say that 90 or even 100% of the fish is removed from the nets manually, so no technology. But what happens is that the volume, the impact, in Barcelona, we only have 2. We have a technique with long line fishing boat, and then we have a trammel fishing boat, this system with 3 nets where fish are trapped. Okay, so fish coming from artisan fishing or traditional fishing, they say it's expensive, but I think it is beautiful. It's fish that has not been touched almost, it has been manually selected, it has been caught directly for us. So oftentimes, if it is, I don't know, prawn season, we cannot spend 2 months eating prawn only, right? So we need to find balance. For example, when there's cuttlefish coming from traditional or artisan fishing, we have to consume it. It's perfect. Nothing's missing. It's so nice. It's still not even oxidated. With all the tentacles, we really have to attach value to it. Maybe if during the rest of the year the weather is bad and these boats have difficulties fishing, then we can consume any type of fish. But we have to attach value to this type of fishing. And if we have the chance, if we have the opportunity of consuming fish like that, it's good and it's a luxury. It's a luxury, it's something we have at home. And let's see how long we can keep this type of fishing. I always talk about the social impact because it is really good to have fishermen and fisherwomen being like us, so that the money we spend are for people like us, people who in turn will also spend their money buying fruit, vegetable and other products and meat like we do with fish, because in that way we are ensuring this generation succession, so that products are treated the way we want to have this food sovereignty. So that is why I wanted to explain what artisan fishing is. Sometimes it's difficult. I know that. We come back to that label. Go to the fish market if you have the opportunity. You don't need to come to see us in particular. We will, of course, be delighted if you do so. But in the summer, if you go to the harbor to visit them, there are so many harbors, ports in Catalonia that are accessible, where you can walk around. You can identify the type type of boat. And that is so enriching, because in that way you can see what is going on at all times and avoid being disconnected from this reality of fishing. Because I think we have a difference here with agriculture, because when we walk around we can find a farmer, but with fishermen and fisherwomen, they leave, we don't see them so much, we don't see them until they come back. So on the one hand, this is very hard and it causes loneliness within our collective, but at the same time fishermen and fisherwomen don't feel valued enough, don't feel connected and looked after in society. So if we walk around and we see the fishermen and fisherwomen, if we attach value to their job, wherever they come from, Catalan fish market, this is a warranty, I told you before, but in that way, we are ensuring that we will have fishermen and fisherwomen who will be proud of doing what they do, because it's a complete passion for us. And at least, luckily, they, are bringing products. So if we can taste this product, this is fantastic. Thank you very much, Cristina. It was a huge pleasure to listen to you. We don't have any more time for questions, so we will say goodbye to you, thanking you again. And we really hope that the audience can also attend our next conference in the cycle. We will provide you all the relevant information. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks. Thanks.